I had seen, people in my industry getting laid off for many years, and I kind of built the Superman complex, like, oh, it would never happen to me. Like, I'm special. And then it did.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Being an Engineer podcast, marking the beginning of a new Open to Work series. Part of the stated purpose of the Being an Engineer podcast is to connect with the companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities featured on the show. So in alignment with that purpose, my goal for this Open to Work series is to provide a platform for engineers who are currently seeking new opportunities, sharing their experiences and insights in an open and candid manner to connect these talented professionals with our community of listeners who may be able to offer support or job leads. Our first guest in this series is Erica Kahn, a highly accomplished biomedical engineer with a wealth of experience in the medical device industry. Erica previously worked for Ocular Therapeutix, where she made significant contributions to the development of innovative hydrogel technologies for ocular applications. Today, she's here to share her journey, discuss the challenges of being unexpectedly out of work, and provide valuable insights that can benefit engineers who may find themselves in a similar situation. We are honored to have her kick off this important series, and through her candid discussion, we hope to provide not only a connection for Erica, but also a source of inspiration and practical advice for everyone listening. So with that, Erica, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm super excited about this episode. This is the first one that we've ever done in this Open to Work series. And my deep hope is that, we're all engineers here listening to the podcast, producing the podcast. And my hope is that we'll listen to the guests, you being the first one, and maybe think to ourselves, I just heard about an opening for a role that has, Erica's exact qualifications, or someone at my company, or someone else that I heard about, and it will lead to a connection that leads to a job. And at the same time, we're going to get to hear from your experiences and your insights, which are going to be, on their own right, helpful for other engineers who are listening to this episode. So with that, I will start with a question that I always start with, and that is, what made you decide to become an engineer?
Wow, that's a good question. I actually answered that on my college essay, the application you write, where my first answer is that as a 6-year-old, I built this Lego city where I had these gondolas connecting my bed to my desk, and my little Lego people could get around and use state-of-the-art technology that I, as a little kid, invented. and I've always been pretty creative, and I'd like to build things. And I didn't really know any engineers growing up, but I always thought I'd be something in the medical community. Like, my dad was a doctor, and he really was a big influence growing up. And so combining that interest with building things and medical science, that sort of led me to biomedical engineering.
Love it, man. These are classic answers. It's Legos and influence from a family member. Those are like the two most common answers that we get. So classic upbringing in your engineering background. So let's talk a little bit about Ocular Therapeutix, where you worked for, 7 or 8 years, something like that?
Yep, it'll be 8 years in August. Well, if I made it to August.
Right. Okay. Such as it is, would have been 8 years. So can you tell us, of course, without sharing anything confidential, but can you tell us about any of the projects that you worked on there?
Yeah, for sure. So I was mostly in the research and development group. So we worked on really early stage technologies using our hydrogel platform to deliver different kinds of therapeutics to the eye. So my team is really focused on treating macular degeneration using a small molecule, a tyrosine kinase inhibitor. This is all public knowledge, so it's okay to say. And I kind of was really lucky that I got to see a project go from benchtop to scale up to clinical manufacturing, all the way through, the clinical pipeline. So that was really a great experience. And it's rare. I think in all of R&D, maybe 5% of projects make it to the big leagues, make it to the clinical studies. So getting to be really intimately involved in that project was a gift in a way.
Very cool. Can you tell us what is macular degeneration? Like, I mean, I'm familiar with the term, but honestly, I don't really know what it is. It's a degradation of eyesight, I guess, but like behind that, what's happening in the body?
I think you got the gist of it with the breakdown of eyesight. Yeah. So basically there's leaky blood vessels in the back of the eye. This is for wet AMD because there's dry and wet. And we were after the wet kind. And the leaky blood vessels kind of result in this pool of blood that makes the central vision obscured in patients. And so you kind of lose that, middle central vision focus, which is really problematic since, it's a little more easy to detect because glaucoma is the opposite. It works from the outside in, where the higher intraocular pressure kind of causes that vision loss on the outside. But yeah, macular degeneration is on the inside out.
So leaky blood vessels leads to blood pooling in the center of the eye that blocks the vision in the center of the eye. And what are the treatments for that? How do you resolve it?
Yeah, so there's currently treatments that are every month. They're a little bit, you basically get these needle injections that are called intravitreal injections to the back of the eye. And they give these, treatments like Eylea and others that are basically anti-VEGF therapies. So VEGF is vascular endothelial growth factor, and the anti-VEGF blocks that from happening. So vascular vessels, you're trying to block new vessels from forming. And that treatment works pretty well in a lot of patients, but it's a constant burden for patients to come in every month or every 6 weeks. And these are usually elderly patients that have trouble getting to the doctor. So Ocular's vision was, pun intended with the vision, was to reduce that patient burden and to, have one injection that gives you 6 months, 9 months of treatment where you don't have to keep returning over and over.
Cool. Very cool. I am not familiar with ophthalmology really at all. So I imagine that there are some factors to consider when developing devices for ophthalmology that are different from developing a laparoscopic instrument for hernia repair or something like that in different parts of the other parts of the body. What are some critical factors that you and your team needed to keep in mind as you developed this new device?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's an often engineering kind of perspective. Like, what are the constraints on this equation? What are the things?
Right.
So, one of them is that the eye can't really clear foreign particulate very well. So any little bits of particle or endotoxins, which are sort of breakdown products of bacteria, those really cause a big inflammatory response in the eye. So that's one of the biggest things that we have to keep an eye out for. Another pun.
Okay. Since we're on vision puns here, I have to share one that's pretty good. I do jujitsu, and there's a guy who trains at our gym, and he's blind. He has been blind since birth, as I understand, and completely blind, not just like partially. And so the coach will often show us a technique to drill, and he'll be like, "Does everyone got that?" And this blind guy will always say something like, "Oh, can you show me that again?" Or, "Yeah, I need to see it again." And it's like, at first we weren't sure if we should laugh or if he was being serious, but yeah, he's just making jokes. He's a funny guy.
I mean, that's the best. If you can make light of the situation,
Totally.
When you can't cry, I like to laugh. So.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you and I, when we talked about potentially doing this interview, we talked about a few of our strengths as engineers, and whether they be highly technical or more kind of like on the organization or communication side of things. And I know for me, the technical side of things, I'm probably just barely good enough, but I'm much stronger when it comes to communication and organization, community building, culture. Those are really the things that I'm best at. So what about you? Where do you see your biggest strengths? as an engineer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think you're selling yourself a little short. I think those soft skills are often undervalued, especially in the engineering community. So I think those are really important. But I think my greatest strength would be creativity, I guess. Yeah, I worked with the chief scientific officer at Ocular Therapeutix, Pete Jarrett, taught me to draw inspiration from other fields. Like there was this project where we were trying to figure out how to stretch and elongate these strands of hydrogel. And he sent me all these videos from candy cane making, like to show that how they heat and stretch. And it's really all the same, orders of operation. It's just applied to a different field. And I don't know, I think that kind of mindset and that perspective is really helpful when you're trying to design a product or solve a new kind of problem.
That's a powerful tool, right? Being able to take an application from one genre and then apply it to another one, probably one that's far underutilized. So being able to skillfully do that, I can see as being highly valuable. Also, it totally jives that you have strong skills in creativity, because in R&D, it's really about being creative, right? It's you're starting with a blank piece of paper. You don't have a map to the finish line, and you need to be creative and just figure things out. So I think that engineers who are very creative often do well in R&D, which sounds like was the case for you as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Yeah, no, not everyone has that mindset in R&D. Like it is scary sometimes. Like you said, the blank sheet of paper, this has never been done before. Where do you start? And I just love that. I feel like it's really motivating, where it's just seeing what you can come up with, and it's all on you to solve this problem. And you can't just copy a procedure that's out there in the literature. You could be inspired by things that happen that are similar. But I think I just loved that. It's almost like you're competing with yourself. I guess I'm kind of very competitive too. And that feeling of I'm like driving to succeed on this new challenge.
Nice. So. Do you find that you're more competitive with others or with yourself?
I think when it comes to my career, it's myself. I hope. Maybe I have some colleagues that disagree. I don't know. But on the softball field, it's with others.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We're getting a new flavor of Erica here on the softball field. Awesome. Love it. Going back to Ocular Therapeutix, you worked on hydrogel technologies for eye care. Again, if there are non-confidential things you can share, is there like maybe a project or an aspect of a project that you can share, and like what its impact on patient outcomes was, and also what the heck is hydrogel?
That's a good question. Yeah, so a hydrogel is mostly made of water. There's a little bit of polymer in there, and polymer is just another word for plastic. I get a lot of engineers know what polymers are, so your audience probably knows that. But basically, yeah, the benefit of a hydrogel in the body is that because it's like 90% or more water, that's the same makeup of our cells and our tissues. So when the body sees that, spongy texture, it's less, there's less of a foreign body response, basically.
Which you mentioned is really critical in ophthalmology.
Right. That's something that we would often use with our competitive intelligence at Ocular, to try to say our competitors were using different kinds of polymers that weren't hydrogels, and what were the pros and cons of that. So,
nice.
Yeah. The other question was like an innovative way to help a project that helps patients in some way, essentially. So I think one of the ones that came to mind is we had this problem, and then this was disclosed because this was our clinical trial. We had this formulation that was 3 implants instead of, you kind of prefer 1 injection, especially when it's needles into the eye. So we were kind of doing like a dose escalation to see what the minimal dose you needed to get the effect was. And it seemed as we went higher and higher, we kept getting better efficacy signals where the blood pooling in the back of the eye was decreased. You can kind of measure it using imaging technology to see that thickness. And the formulation challenge was, okay, great. 3 of them work. Try to figure out how to get it into 1 implant. So that was it's always do the impossible, make this product that seems really challenging to make. And kind of leverage, again, I'm going to go to this guy, Pete Jarrett, the CSO. He really inspired me in a lot of ways, but he taught me about this modeling you could do. It's called the Higuchi kinetics, basically. Plus this guy, Nick Pepis, also added to that. But you can predict how a drug will release from a hydrogel or any implant, really, based on the solubility of the drug, the surface area of the implant, and the concentration of the drug as well, and a few other things. But using this model, we can kind of, do a DOE almost without even making any hydrogels, which is kind of a cool. I was used to like using my hands and making a bunch of gels and doing in vitro release studies, seeing where that got us. But leveraging this model really helps because it's hard to run in vivo studies and get that really important, pharmacokinetic data. But this was a way to kind of bypass that. And we didn't really have time to do another animal study. And we had to make a decision really fast because the next clinical trial was about to start. And we actually made the right call. I think we ended up picking a really good formulation. We used some of the data that my team generated along with this model to sort of find the best possible product. And that's the one that's going forward into the next clinical trial now. So
very cool. That's a perfect topic to segue into the next question, which is what's one thing that you've done to accelerate the speed of engineering? And it sounds like that was an experience where you did kind of accelerate the speed. So maybe if you could talk about, like, at a high level, what was the the workflow or the process behind that particular application, and how could other engineering teams apply that to accelerate the speed of their projects? Or if that just doesn't work, that connection isn't quite right for whatever reason, maybe there's another experience you have where you could talk to about accelerating the speed of engineering.
Yeah, and I think that was a good example, like you said, because running these animal studies usually takes us a year because it's a long, sustained delivery therapies. They inherently take a long time to study in vivo. So I think the way to accelerate, it's not everyone will take model data and have it have the same weight as a preclinical study. And being able to have enough, scientific acumen behind you to get people to really believe you that it's, that was actually one of the biggest challenges, I think, is getting everyone in the room to trust the science and to make the leap. So I think that's one of the things you need for really to accelerate any kind of project is, an open mindset in your team, because I think that's often the problem, at least that I've seen in the room. Some people have this great idea, but others are very adamantly sure it has to be done this way. So I guess building a team that is open-minded, I think, is another way. So that when this kind of technology comes, like this cool modeling that you can do with a lot of different fields of engineering, and having it, be used and integrated.
I love what you're saying there. I think it's super interesting. Presumably, maybe I'm wrong here, but presumably the people, quote unquote, in the room, the stakeholders on your project were technical people. Maybe some of them were marketing, some of them were business, but there were a lot of technical people there, including leadership, I'm sure, who had to make the final call as far as, we'll use this model data as opposed to just going out and getting all empirical clinical study data. Why do you think there was initially anyway some reluctance to using for people to trust that model data, like you mentioned? And then what happened so that the team eventually was comfortable trusting that data?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some people, they're maybe because of their training, they're taught to think a certain way about a certain field. It's hard to sometimes change minds and to convince. That's the nature of this job a lot of the time. Is I have this idea, you have this idea. How do we come together, and whose idea is the right one? But I think because of, these concepts were cited in the literature, that was one thing that helped. And also, we kind of ended up picking both. And when I look back on it, we hedged our bets and used what the model told us and went forward with that. And we did do a preclinical study on the side, but that study wasn't going to be done in time before the clinical trial started. So that was like, it was going to be there to kind of confirm that we chose the right thing. But if it wasn't the right choice, we already started the trial. So I guess in the end, it really was both. But
nice. But you used the model data to get a head start on the final outcome. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So let me take a very short break here and share with the listeners that the Being an Engineer podcast is brought to you by Pipeline Design and Engineering, where we don't do pipelines, but we do help companies develop advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services. Learn more at teampipeline.us. The podcast is also sponsored by The Wave, an online platform of free tools, education, and community for engineers. Learn more at thewave.engineer. Today we're speaking with Erica Kahn. So Erica, let's talk about being out of work and looking for your next opportunity. I have been there myself. It is a scary and vulnerable time. I remember when I got laid off, I went home and I remember leaning against the door frame into our bedroom and just kind of standing there and telling my wife I got laid off and I'm not sure like what I'm going to do to pay the mortgage and, all these questions. And I have this very visceral memory of that. And I felt ill, sick to my stomach for a couple of days. And then after a couple of days, I guess I started getting used to the new reality and I didn't at least feel sick to my stomach, but it was an awful experience for me. I didn't enjoy it at all. So can you walk us through, if you're open to being a little vulnerable with us, walk us through your initial reactions and kind of how you've been coping with this transition?
Yeah. I guess leading up to the actual layoff, there were some signals. I guess there usually are, like we had a change in senior leadership. We had, a new team that was going to focus the company on getting us to the finish line. That often means getting rid of R&D because we kind of did our job in a way.
Yeah.
If you're looking back, it kind of makes sense, in some ways. But yeah, my first reaction was similar to yours, where I was just, heartbroken and just upset. And like, I felt betrayed. Like I spent all these years working on this product, especially because my team was focused on the main pipeline project. That's the one that they're going to focus on going forward. And it did help. We got laid off at like 9 a.m. And then at 11 a.m., the whole R&D team went to Yard House and got some drinks, which was nice. so that's part of the grieving process. There's an alcohol step.
There you go. Right. Of course. Yeah. Gotta be.
But after that, there was the shock started to fade by after a couple days. And I realized I had this severance and I had, I'm lucky in that not everyone gets a pretty generous severance, but after being at Ocular for 8 years, I basically have like 4 months to find a new job. And then I kind of thought more about how I really had learned most of what I could have learned at Ocular. And it's probably the best for my career to, go find a new challenge. And I think that's really the takeaway for me. I'm really going to miss the people. I mean, especially in the R&D team, it was this really great mix of scientists who were really, really smart, but also just really fun and good people. They all just really, everyone was willing to drop everything and help others. And it was always like a fun environment in the lab. So that I'll miss that the most. But yeah. So I think I kind of went through, and I go back and forth between shock and gratitude and then, fear that like, what if I don't get a new job? All those emotions kind of cycle around every couple hours, but because it just happened like 2 weeks ago, basically. So
yeah, well, that's I think a very, very normal and natural set of reactions, and the gratitude that you feel. I think that's such a healthy way to think about it. Not just the gratitude, but the fact that I probably learned 80-90% of what I was going to learn there, and so. Maybe this is a good thing, right? One door closes before another can open. So I love the mindset that you've adopted there. Very healthy.
At least that's what I tell people. And maybe if I keep saying that gratitude is coming to the top as my best emotion right now, that's maybe I'll internally follow that. So.
And that would also be totally normal and natural. I think it's really cool that you are willing to talk about this openly, because it's there's, I think, maybe a little bit, stigma is not quite the right word. I should have said stigmatism. That would have been a good ophthalmology joke, huh?
Ooh,
Bam. Yeah.
That is a good one. I should have beat you to it.
But so many of us go through this, right? It's not like, being laid off is 1 in a million. It's probably more like 1 in 2. Probably 50% of the people out there have been laid off at some point in time, or maybe more than that. So it's a very, very common thing, not a pleasant thing, but common nonetheless. And we don't really talk about it very much. So I'm excited to do this series, and very grateful that you're willing to be the first one and open yourself up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, like you're saying, to try to reverse some of that like negative emotion, that people aren't supposed to talk about that they got laid off. And it's, it's because there is some shame in it too. That's one of the emotions I didn't bring up. It's like, did I deserve to be laid off? Was I not doing enough? Like, that's always one of the thoughts too. And I think it's, it's really rarely about the person. It's usually just the company's at a different stage in its growth and development. And, it's
absolutely, it's
not about you, or it's like in the breakup, it's not you, it's me. That's what
absolutely.
Ocular said to me.
Well, what were some of, and I mean, it only happened 2 weeks ago, so I would think for sure still in the phase of going through this, but what are some of the steps that you have taken to position yourself for new job opportunities?
Yeah, I've been, LinkedIn is kind of a very useful tool. I don't know how people found a job like 20 years ago, because
right. Yeah.
I guess they mailed resumes to companies. That's kind of a wild thought.
Right.
But yeah, so I did the bat signal on LinkedIn. I said the open to work, and they have a nice little suggested template you could use for how you want to make connections and ask for advice. And if you have jobs, I forget the word that they use, but that was really helpful actually, because a lot of people, even without me having to ask, were just like, "Hey, I have a job for you. My company's hiring. Like, I want to try to help you. Let me know if you're interested." And people that I used to work with at Ocular, people I used to work with, I had this co-op at Genzyme in Santa Fe a while back. And just people that I went to school with. A lot of people are just, really showing up for me in that way. And that's like another time I'm feeling a lot of gratitude. Because it's humbling to get laid off, but then you get this like outpouring of people trying to help you, which feels really great.
That's so uplifting to hear. I love it that you put it out there. Your community wrapped their arms around you. This wonderful supportive response. Being a little bit retrospective. Is that a word? Retrospective?
It sounds right. And I'm not an English major, so
I'm not sure, but I think it's getting the thought across that I want to get. Anyway, thinking back a little bit, what do you think that? Okay, I'll preface this by saying that I don't know you very well, but we've spoken a few times, and I think that you just seem like a delightful human being, right? Someone who is easy to talk to, nice, right? Someone that I would enjoy working with. What do you think that you have done in the past to elicit this wonderful reaction of support from your community? Because people could have chosen to be like, "Oh, Erica's looking for a job." Well, I remember last year when that thing happened, and you're on your own, Erica. But that was not your experience. So, why do you think that you have garnered this support?
Oh, well, first off, thank you for the compliment. It's very sweet of you. I guess, I think a lot of people don't take those lessons from kindergarten through with the rest of their life. Like do unto others, or treat others the way you want to be treated, and sharing and caring, all those things. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but in a way, that's what I think I always go back to, which is, these are humans that you're working with. They're not just like, I know I could send this email and, point out how you didn't listen to me in the last meeting, and that's why we're going in a circle. And it's like this really frustrating thing that you did to me. Or I could say, hey, I thought about this and these are some other ideas I have. What do you think? Just pretend it didn't happen. I don't know. It's hard to do that sometimes, but I think but at Ocular also was easy because for the most part, everyone was really nice and really helpful. And, I guess just kind of trying to separate out, those moments where people say things that are, a little more aggressive than the setting needed it to be. And knowing that there's probably something else going on in their lives that's making them stressed out, and knowing it's not me that's causing that. I'm going to try to let them, work through that and not pile on to their stress. So I try to have that mindset in those kinds of situations.
Again, what a healthy mindset to have. And I love that you brought up, I think you called it skills from kindergarten or something to that effect. There's a CEO named Rich Sheridan who runs a company called Menlo Innovations. He was a guest on the show a long time ago, and I've always been a fan of him. He calls them kindergarten skills, and basically exactly what you said. But he's like coined this term in his company, kindergarten skills, and let's have good kindergarten skills. And he even wrote a book, not just about kindergarten skills, but that was part of the book of the culture that he's developed there. And they're so important, right? Like they seem so, benign, but they make a huge difference in how much people like you. And how much people like you makes a huge difference in the overall success that you achieve as a person. So soft skills, right? They're huge.
Yeah, no, I think that's the skills that you have too, for sure. Because again, in our limited interactions, I could tell you also really just genuinely care about other people. And I think that's part of those kindergarten skills,
Thank you. Yeah. Mostly engineers. If you're a doctor or a lawyer, I don't care much about you, but engineers, yeah, that's where my heart is.
Oh, I was trying to remember that lawyer joke about the bus and how it drove off a cliff. I can't remember the joke though. I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Okay. How has your perspective on career and job security changed since being laid off, if at all?
Yeah, I think I had seen, people in my industry getting laid off for many years, and I kind of built the Superman complex, like, oh, it would never happen to me. Like I'm special. I'm invincible. And then it did. So now I'm thinking choosing to be in the R&D space is a risk. Because, at the end of the day, it's an expense. You're not making money from R&D, which is something that my mentor taught me at Ocular. They started a mentor program, and shout out to Josh Reinhardt, great mentor. And which also kind of got me ready for the idea that I might be laid off, because it really hadn't crossed my mind until our mentoring session started like 3 months ago or 4 months ago. So, I think I still think it's worth it, because on my best day at Ocular, I truly loved what I did. Getting to the mix of chemistry and engineering problems, and the way it was I got to 3D print things in the lab and help make fixtures or help support making the first generation injection device. Like all these things I wasn't really qualified to do. I just pursued them because I was interested. And I think it's hard to find that at like a later stage, biotech sort of setting. So I think the trade-off is worth it, but I'm more aware that the layoff is something I should be thinking about in my job search. Like maybe look at how financially healthy the companies are that I'm applying. I might not have looked at that prior to this experience, or, trying to figure out what the telltale signs of layoffs are and seeing if I could predict them at future employers.
Yep. That's great. Well, looking to the future, what kind of roles or opportunities are you looking for, and how do you think your skill set can benefit the potential employers out there?
Yeah, so sort of like I said, I guess I'm still focused on early stage biotech company, drug development. I really am interested in formulation and working with polymers to do sustained delivery of drugs. But really any drug product I think would be interesting. I'm also interested in the medical device side of things. So I've been considering making a shift and, using the biomedical engineering degree and just doing the full-on engineer. But Yeah, so really anything. And I think the roles would be like formulation scientist or principal engineer, things like that.
Got it. Okay. I know you've shared a little already, but any other advice that you might give to engineers who are currently facing layoffs or uncertain job markets?
Yeah, I think believe in yourself. I think at this moment you're told not to do that, and it can be like shaking to your core a little bit. Like, oh wow, I spent my whole career leading up to this. I was doing so great. I had this whole like plan for my future, and now it's gone. And also I got some good advice, which is just to really, take a second and really think, is this the path I want to stay on? If you could use this as an opportunity to make a pretty big change in your career. And then because I'm only 2 weeks out from the layoff, I haven't totally meditated on this idea as much, but I think that's good advice, because it's rare to get that moment in your life where you have a moment to kind of think and not, we're not on that treadmill of career and corporate world. And, it's hard to have that second to really take a breath and figure out what you want next.
Never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
Sound like a good politician with that. I feel like it just made me think of how during every world war, the economy did really well because we got to sell all of these, like, I don't know. I think that was one of the themes of some book I read, and it was kind of a scary thought.
Yeah. I was going to share, you talked about almost being forced to like stop and contemplate a little bit. What do I really want to do next? And it made me think about when I got laid off, and looking back, that was 15 years ago, and it was genuinely one of the best things that has ever happened to me. I think it's really easy to let the lizard brain take control and just, experience fear and anxiety. And we're all going to experience that to some degree. But to realize that almost always, 99.9% of the time, things are not going to be as bad as your lizard brain tells you they're going to be.
I love that term, lizard brain.
They're probably not going to get anywhere near as bad as what, those cycling, spiraling, dark thoughts you have in the dead of night when you can't go back to sleep. So I guess that's my take on it, is that it's probably not going to be nearly as bad as not you specifically, but the general you thinks it's going to be. And for a lot of folks, myself included, it actually turns out to be a really wonderful and positive thing in the long run.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that, and it really does seem kind of counterintuitive,
Yeah.
But I think you're right about the lizard brain. I read somewhere that if there's a negative potential outcome, that's the one we expect. That's for some reason, I guess that helps you survive, back when we were cavemen and had to figure out how to eat and run away from the T-Rexes.
Right.
But I think that's knowing that that's where the first place our brain goes to, and saying, hold on, no, there's a chance this could be a good thing. And then letting yourself go down that path. I think, like you're saying, it's a really good goal.
We've evolved beyond this. Saber-toothed tigers are no longer a thing, and we're probably not going to die.
Unless we bring them back. I know there's a lab in Cambridge that's working to bring back these, the woolly mammoths. I mean, maybe saber-tooth is next. I don't know. Well,
maybe that's one of your next opportunities, right? Formulations. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the genetics and CRISPR and all those cool gene editing tools.
Right.
That could be a pivot idea.
Real life Jurassic Park. Here we go. All right. Don't turn into the evil scientist that did bad things. We don't want to do that.
I promise. I won't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, Erica, thank you so much for being on the Being an Engineer podcast. And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you'd like to reach out, my email address is my first initial last name. So EKAHN92@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Terrific. And can people find you on LinkedIn as well?
They can. Yeah. I think I was one of the first Erica Kahns on LinkedIn. So it's just my first and last name should bring you to that page.
Awesome. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes. Well, thank you again, Erica, for being on the show. I hope this becomes very useful for you and for everyone who got to hear a little bit about your background and experiences and some of the insights that you've been able to share. So thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And I want to just thank you too. I mean, who knew this chance encounter with a vendor at some conference would lead to this cool relationship? I like
right.
that, getting to know you better. It's been really awesome. And I think you have a really cool knack for connecting people. And it's great to meet you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to have to get that as a soundbite and put it all over the place. Send it to my mom. She'll be so proud.
Oh, I always do that too. Whenever I get some good news, my mom hears that first.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron.
I'm Aaron Moncur, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services, visit us at teampipeline.us. To join a vibrant community of engineers online, visit thewave.engineer. Thank you for listening.